2020. For some, it's been a chance to work more from home, spend time with their families, learn new skills, and spend less time on the road. For some, it meant long hours, health risks, and separation from family and friends. For some, it's been a complete dumpster fire. And for others, it was the end of the road.
2020 highlights the multitude of challenges facing excavators, locators, and utility operators. Properly functioning utilities are always important, but for a nation in conflict and crisis, the pressure on every pipe and every cable is so much greater.
A contractor faces a significant class action lawsuit after breaking a 36-inch water main, flooding the interstate highway, and leaving large sections of Jersey City and Hoboken without water service. This comes in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, making it difficult to follow basic sanitation procedures such as hand washing. The water company deployed tanker trucks for residents and hospitals in an effort to continue providing access to potable water. The contractor was installing sheet piling for a bridge project, and reports indicate that a sheet pile was pushed directly into the water main. Crews working on a new elementary school damaged a water main, and the results were catastrophic for the public library distribution hub next door. The flooding destroyed mail order machines, hampering mail delivery services which were recently expanded in response to the pandemic. Courier vans were also destroyed, which were being used to deliver books to curbside pickup locations. The basement took on 3 feet of water and inches of mud, destroying shelf after shelf of books.
The pandemic has driven our nation to exponentially increase our dependence on fast internet service. While not an immediate threat to the life of an excavator, the potential for significant confusion and delay from a single damage to a fiber optic system has grown significantly.
Under pressure to reopen their services, but reduce lines in an effort to slow the spread of COVID-19, the Nevada Department of Motor Vehicles implemented a web-based appointment-only system for residents to handle their motor vehicle-related matters. Days after this went into effect, a contractor using a backhoe cut through a fiber optic cable, causing the statewide DMV system, as well as other government systems, to fail. All transactions and online appointments were canceled, and those who had made appointments but were unaware of the failure were turned away upon arrival. A sewer replacement project spanning over 6 months was still in progress in Chesterfield County when crews severed a fiber optic line. This line, according to officials, was not marked and carried communications for the state government's nearby data center. To make matters worse, this outage shut down the Virginia State voter registration system just before the deadline to be registered for one of the most contentious elections in the U.S. in recent memory. The outage also affected DMV operations as well as COVID-19 data tracking.
A fiber in Chesterfield County was inadvertently cut during a roadside utilities project that interrupted internet access for much of Virginia government, including our Department of Elections.
The fiber optic cable had been installed in the spring in response to the COVID-19 health crisis to help increase data transfer speeds due to the many state employees working from home. While other connections to the data center exist, there was no cable redundant to the one that was severed.
We have been exploring all of our options to extend the voter registration deadline.
Virginia judges ruled that there would be an extension to voter registration to compensate for the outage.
For many Americans, the pandemic has redefined home. Home is where you work, play, learn. It's a place of safety and shelter. Yet these residents lost their homes and their sense of safety to buried utility damages.
Electric company workers were using a horizontal directional drill in a neighborhood when they hit a gas line, causing a leak. Firefighters and gas company workers were on the scene when a home exploded. A firefighter was treated for a cut, but miraculously, there were no other major injuries despite close to a dozen people clearly visible on the street at the moment the home exploded. 16 buildings were condemned due to the blast, displacing more than 50 residents.
In Dubuque, the decision to call 911 and begin evacuations as soon as the leak occurred prevented serious injuries and loss of life. If you are involved in a damage resulting in the release of a hazardous product, call 911 immediately.
The gas company was working on a week-long project in the neighborhood when they apparently struck their own line, causing a leak. One news commentator stated that a drill broke both the gas line and a sewer line, which would certainly explain what happened next.
There was some underground work going on. We responded to a gas leak, and during that time, during the mitigation of that, about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, there was an explosion of a single-family home.
Gas flowed up a sewer line into a home, causing an explosion with 3 family members inside, a father, mother, and son. According to their daughter, who was at work during the incident, her father smelled gas and came out to ask workers in the area if everything was okay. He was reassured that everything was fine and that he did not need to evacuate the home. When he re-entered the home, it exploded. The gas company was aware of the leak at the time and was trying to shut it off. According to some news reports, the home across the street was evacuated prior to the explosion.
Natural gas is lighter than air, and it will vent upwards into the atmosphere if the leak is in the open. However, gas is also under high pressure inside the pipe, so if there is a leak below ground, it will follow the path of least resistance. It will travel through soil, under pavement, and through sewer pipes into structures. Evacuations should always take into consideration any possible underground paths when guessing where gas may have migrated. For those who have been able to weather the pandemic by working or attending school in the comfort of their homes, they may underestimate the cost of the infrastructure that connects us across our nation. The push for faster and faster internet has been happening across the country for years now. This need for speed has left a trail of damages to water, sewer, gas, and other utilities in residential neighborhoods, as well as a string of high-profile accidents that will not soon be forgotten. The cost of fast internet is not just counted in terms of loss of service or damage to property. We have to consider the cost of lives as well.
A crew was installing fiber optic cables when they hit a buried high-voltage electric line. Nearby residents described hearing a loud boom. 2 workers, one 20 years old, the other 35, were pronounced dead on the scene, and a 3rd worker was injured as a result of the accident.
Sometimes we read stories like this and we kind of see a name, we pass over a name. But when it hits home like this, for me anyway, I start thinking about the families of those that lost their lives and how in an instant lives are changed.
In Sun Prairie, the fear of gas and the loss of a loved one will likely never be forgotten.
911 calls reporting a gas leak in downtown Sun Prairie rattled residents, business owners, and the fire department as memories flooded back of the fatal explosion in 2018. Contractors constructing a parking lot broke a gas line. Firefighters evacuated the downtown, and the leak was successfully shut off within less than a half an hour by the gas company. The incident in 2018 went much differently.
Early one evening, the unthinkable happened. During a routine horizontal directional drill operation to install a length of conduit, a 2-inch plastic gas main was struck.
Think about, could this occur in my town, in my city, where life is disrupted for months and perhaps even years after this digging accident?
There is a tremendous human cost in this accident, and that's what we have to keep in mind. People's lives can be changed forever when bad digging accidents occur.
As highly populated areas gain access to high-speed internet, smaller municipalities feel pressure to compete as well.
In a small mountain town about 2.5 hours from Denver, work crews installing fiber optic communication cables struck a gas line. From news reports, it appears that the leak was unreported over the course of several days. Eventually, the gas made its way into a nearby residence, and the home exploded. The fiber project was immediately suspended as investigations began. The remains of a 49-year-old mother of 2 children was found among the ruins of her home.
In the event that you are crossing a right-of-way in your community and you notice any form of abnormal operating condition, be sure to report that immediately to that underground utility company in your area. This could be in the form of any structural damage, blowing gas, any type of leak, suspicious behavior, unidentified encroachment, dead vegetation, or any other activity that might cause alarm. Remember, if you see something, please say something.
A natural gas pipeline ruptured in a field, causing an evacuation within a 2-mile radius of the blast. Fortunately, no one was injured. However, upon inspection, the section of the pipe that failed displays scrapes, gouges, and other marks consistent with third-party damage to the pipeline.
In your damage prevention program, be sure to include the importance of reporting all incidents and pipeline contacts immediately, because a gouge, a scratch, or a dent today may cause significant challenges for that pipeline operator in the future if not reported immediately.
A crew was cutting trenches with heavy equipment when their trencher struck a high-pressure natural gas line, causing an explosion. 6 pieces of machinery and other vehicles were destroyed by the fire, and 4 workers were transported by a private vehicle to a local hospital. 1 man was then airlifted to a burn unit in critical condition.
Be sure to utilize free resources that pipeline operators have contributed to in efforts to promote safe digging. These resources can be found on many operations pages. They can be found on phmsa.org, Pipelines 101, OSHA, and many other resources that are readily available to you. The 811 meetings are also a good source of information, and again, as mentioned before, are also a rich opportunity to collaborate with peers in efforts to exchange good operating practices for equipment, locating practices, and just good general working relationships. And also use available resources that are free that your employees can benefit from in the field. One is a Safe Excavator app. This allows you to be very proactive in researching the state specifics for one-call requirements. It also provides a checklist that can be used for your employees during their JSA before the work begins. And it also provides an avenue to report an incident in the event the underground utility has been contacted. The Pipeline Agriculture Safety Alliance recently distributed a pre-excavation checklist in their magazine. This is free to the general public, very beneficial for the general contractor and excavator to research, look over, and modify to incorporate into your own damage prevention program in order to maintain safe digging operations around underground utilities.
Aging infrastructure is a growing challenge facing excavators today. Sometimes attempts to repair a small problem can lead to much bigger ones.
A 35-year-old East Loop area water main burst when private contractors were excavating to repair a small leak. This 96-inch line provides nearly half the water for the city of Houston. Water came so deep and fast that high water trucks were needed to rescue people from their vehicles.
There were some vehicles trapped on the loop, about 12 to 15 vehicles.
More than a dozen cars were trapped on the interstate. Tanker trucks were deployed throughout the city to prepare for fire response if needed. And restaurants, courts, and schools closed due to the service outage. Sarasota Bay has seen a lot of sewage this year. This footage you are seeing shows the environmental impact from a 50-year-old sewage line that burst in July. But just a month before this disaster hit the bay, there was another spill. A pressurized force main carrying sewage was damaged by a contractor, which then leaked over 1 million gallons of raw sewage into a containment pond, which overflowed and then ran out into the bay.
The cost of responding to and mitigating incidents like these can be significant. In this instance, Manatee County staff deployed vacuum trucks to collect as much spilled wastewater as possible, did testing to analyze water from the bay to measure the impact on the environment, and residents were also notified door-to-door of the incident and made aware of the potential health risks. This is a burden on taxpayers that perhaps could have been avoided, not to mention damage to the reputation of the bay on top of the obvious environmental impact.
It was a mess. 7 units at a mobile home park lost the ability to flush when a neighboring business crushed a sewer lateral during construction. The problem? The sewer lateral ran through the business's property. Dating back to the early 60s, this sewer lateral was not documented, and there was no easement agreement filed with the city to protect it. The cost to repair the damage is estimated at $50,000, but neither the city, business, or mobile home park feel it is their responsibility to make the repairs.
Careful records of utility installations and modifications prevent damages. Be aware that older utilities of any kind may not be documented and may not follow current property lines.
Contractor struck a 6-inch gas main while drilling in the East Lake area of Atlanta. This leak caused an explosion, leveling a tax accounting business. Officials stated that they believe the root cause of the accident was a marking mistake and ultimately was not the fault of the contractor.
The value of accurate records and accurate locating is clear. It can be tempting to depend on someone's memory to determine the location of a buried utility, but a matter of a few feet or even just a few inches can be the difference between life and death.
In the law enforcement 35 years, I've never seen anything like this before in my life. It was horrible.
This leak was caused by a contractor drilling in bollards to protect air conditioning units from vehicular damage near the building. The propane tank leaked out. Employees noticed that it was empty, called the propane company, and had it completely filled again. And again, it leaked out. The propane found its way to the basement. An employee smelled propane, noticed ice in the tank and in the grass, and called the fire department. The building was evacuated.
I want to recognize the maintenance supervisor at LEAP. He was responsible for evacuating probably at least a dozen or so employees, and without his quick actions, would have been much more horrific tragedy.
Firefighters entered the building just before the explosion happened, killing 1 firefighter and injuring 6 other people. The propane line was not required to be marked prior to the excavation.
In interviews during the investigation, the propane company stated that they did not install the propane line. The plumbing and heating company who worked on the boiler also stated that they did not install the line. Maintenance staff recalled the crew installing the bollards talking about where the propane line might be, but figured they would know how to locate it and avoid hitting it.
As an excavator, locator, or utility operator, you are under more pressure today than ever before. Enforce and encourage good, safe work practices on your job site. Understand your state and local one-call requirements. Safe digging resources are free and readily available. Call 811 before you dig. Be aware that private utilities will not be marked by calling 811. Older utilities may not have records, and digging to your aging infrastructure can be a challenge, especially in the case of large water and sewer mains. Always pothole to the depth of your excavation to verify the location of a buried utility. If you are involved in a damage that causes the release of a hazardous material, call 911 immediately. Don't let the pressure get to you. Dig safe, get home safe. We are depending on you.